week on New to You, Success, Part 3, The Player. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the New to You Show. We're on our third episode in our topic of success. We will let every topic teller tell their topic pick and why it is success.
A topic teller tells his topic tale.
It's a quartet. I'm one of your quartet of topic tellers. John Holt, with me.
I'm one of your other quartet of topic tellers, Keith Vincent.
I am your third, whatever, Julian Cage, and our guest this week.
I am Jocko Farino. Hi again, everyone.
Hey, Jocko, welcome back.
Thank you.
Jocko's actually going to be up before we roll into your pick. New to You Show is a rate and review podcast where we
Sit around the water cooler.
Yeah, we just rate stuff all the time.
Yep.
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. In fact, we only give 4 out of 10 ratings, and we're
That's
very
right.
careful to pick things that will get that rating.
That's fit comfortably in that slot, 4 out of 10.
And if we accidentally pick something better or worse than a 4 out of 10, well, good luck, because it got a 4 out of 10 on the New to You Show.
Hopefully you agree.
Yeah.
What? 1 star?
From each of us, from the quartet of topic tellers. So let's roll it to your pick, Jocko. Let's do it.
From director Robert Altman comes a story of Hollywood.
I got a writer in here who's got a pitch I think you ought to hear. I think it's hot.
We open outside San Quentin.
The Graduate, Part 2. And Mrs. Robinson had a stroke, so she can't talk.
It's gonna be funny?
Yeah, it'll be funny.
Griffin Mill.
Great for the theme of success. Really, I sort of went with the very first idea that sprung to my mind.
As soon as you heard success,
I
boom,
thought,
this
boom.
popped in here.
And we are talking about The Player, a 1992 film by Robert Altman that talks a lot about success and the nature of success and what we want and what we get, and a lot about Hollywood. So it's a movie starring Tim Robbins about a studio exec who is getting death threats from a writer. He has sort of brushed a writer off. The writer didn't take kindly to him. So he's getting these postcards that are death threats. Through the process of that, hopefully you've seen it already, so there's sort of minor, I guess, first act spoilers. He comes across Vincent D'Onofrio, very young Vincent D'Onofrio, as one of these, the writer that he thinks is blackmailing him or is sending him these death threats, and through an altercation ends up killing him. And from there, it's a movie about him getting away with it, pretty much, and getting everything that he wants. In the process, it's this story about Hollywood, about L.A., especially the L.A. of the late 80s, early 90s. And it is
Pre-riots.
Pre-riots, yeah. And it is completely star-studded, just jam-packed with Hollywood.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not totally pre-riots, because
That's right, they mention it.
reference the riots in the Pasadena Police Department.
Oh, really?
That
I
is
thought
true.
this came out in 92.
It is 92.
The riots didn't happen until 92, did they?
Well, they must have happened soon enough for them to have made reference when
All
Whoopi
right.
Goldberg was the chief.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, so, to start off the discussion about it, I think that it's really the first thing that everyone talks about with The Player, one of this sort of, the masterpiece of it is this long opening tracking shot. It's over 8 minutes long, following just this sort of studio as everyone is coming and going, and you hear people talking and people moving in and out. It's a work of art. It really is incredible. They talk about it's so self-referential. The whole film is so self-referential. They're talking about the long tracking shot in A Touch of Evil. While this long tracking shot is going on, you get a glimpse into all these different aspects of this Hollywood studio.
Well, in the very first frame, the film starts with like a take.
Yes. Yeah. It starts with a clapper, sort of a slate, an action, and then we go into the action of this film. Altman seems very, very intent on reminding us over and over again that we are watching a movie. Everything from lighting choices to the basic structure of the of the story. It's really it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's also very, in a lot of ways, unlike his other works. It, I think, pretends to be an ensemble film, but really isn't. It's really all about Tim Robbins and his love interest, Greta Scacchi.
There's some debate as to how to pronounce her name. We're just going to go with Scotch.
We're going to go Scacchi. Yeah.
We discussed it. We had a long discussion.
About 2 hours.
We got out our thesauruses.
We drank about 2 bottles of Scotchy.
Yes.
That's right.
But that's what we're going with.
We're going with that.
Bear with us. If it's wrong, I apologize on behalf of the show.
Tim Rubens. And
I think this is one of Tim Robbins' maybe best performances. I think that he's given range and the sort of freedom to hit these highs and lows that even some of his best works he doesn't have the wiggle room that he has here.
I feel like he could achieve this in everything, but he was just given the opportunity to.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the suspenders. That's right. And that's another thing. I mean, you could go off in a million different directions about everything that's fun about this movie and everything that is a product of its time. I love the baggy 90s suits, the
billowy,
really billowy, kind of dumpy in the trousers looking suits. It's really great.
Well, it's funny, kind of coming off of the Tenenbaums too. They're very careful about costume, and it's like you're saying, it's intentionally like laden with metaphor.
Right.
And when he makes this change from light baggy clothing to tight dark clothing, and like becomes this alternate, like this other character.
Right.
The switches he's making are pretty interesting.
Yeah. And it's amazing that it can both be this meta, constantly reminding you of the artifice while still keeping you enthralled in the story and the plot line and the characters. So it's kind of incredible that it's able to balance those two things so well.
Right. I don't know what the sort of perception of this movie is in Altman's kind of oeuvre. Yeah, but it's not the one that everyone talks about first, for sure. It's not the
Popeye,
Nashville.
right?
It's Popeye, yeah. But it's really, I think, really.
I do believe that this is probably considered the pinnacle. What do you think is considered the pinnacle? Not Shortcuts, certainly.
I would think Nashville, probably.
Nashville.
But Nashville, I think, is talked about as kind of, like a debacle, don't you think? I feel like this was I would think that most people would consider this to be the pinnacle of Altman's powers.
I think this might be his most popular.
I think the other side of that is that they would go, like you're saying,
other
Joko,
than Popeye.
They would say if you had a list of great movies that just need to be on the thing, like The Player's going to be on there,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a Robert Altman movie is going to be on there too. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like
it kind of transcends that.
It's so separate from it's so inside baseball and so very much like this is a blockbuster indie film kind of thing. And versus like Altman is
it considered an indie film? I'm sorry to keep derailing with these questions.
I don't know. I mean, they're showing it like it was early days of Con, like it's playing there, like it's. I don't think a lot of these people were gonna like paid for all their cameos and stuff.
That was actually in one of the
a lot of favors.
In one of the special features, a lot of this the way that they were able to get so many extras, a lot of people just wanted to be involved, but they weren't given any direction. They didn't have to do anything. They were sort of just like, are you going to be around today? Okay, so are we. Sit here in this restaurant and say whatever you want as the camera goes by you. There's a dinner scene, a sort of a gala scene, where there's footage of Altman sort of explaining to them, to the crowd. It's full of famous people of the time, and he's explaining to them, okay, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna have them come up and then eat your dinner, enjoy, dance, and then we'll come back and we'll film this other part. It was like a gala that they happened to get to catch some footage on. There are, in the opening sequence, Tim Robbins' character is being pitched different sort of ridiculous screenplays. The most notable is Buck Henry is pitching him. Actually, Buck Henry is pitching him The Graduate 2. And he said in an interview, which is so good, and Altman said in an interview that all of these screenwriters, he told them to like, give me pitches you actually have, but no one would buy. And that's what these are. So that's like Buck Henry really had been kicking around The Graduate 2 in his mind. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
Based on my exhaustive research, I would say only MASH would compare.
Of course.
Like
MASH is pretty high.
It would have to be MASH of the Altman collection. It would have to be MASH, Popeye, or the Player. Right?
So
this
is very interesting for me because this is a sort of a recent discovery for me. Going through screenwriting school, through film history classes, we did Nashville. That was our Altman movie, and MASH, and nobody ever mentioned The Player.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
I find that interesting.
I think it's in part because he
so
didn't write this film.
Right.
And it was based on a book. I think both things that are kind of more, but I think I wonder if maybe it's not like if Altman were to choose a film that represents him and his what he really thinks is his vision.
Right.
I don't think he would pick this film. I think for him this was kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And
imagine being so at the height of your game and the height of your powers, like you said, that a lark ends up being one of these like pinnacles of 90s cinema. Yeah.
Just snuck in there.
Yeah. It's great. The performances are incredible from
absolutely
everybody on hand. Yeah. And
the tension. Last week we were talking about a Wes Anderson movie, and I kept bringing up that I felt like it was kind of stylized. I feel like there's some elements of this that are very stylized.
Sure.
And because of that, it makes these intense scenes seem so much more so. In that you're just like, oh, I thought we were along for this kind of like happy-go-lucky fun romp through Hollywood. Turns out there's like kind of this brooding. There's a broodingness to it.
Right.
And it's definitely playing with the rumors of old Hollywood, where you have the fixer who's like making sure the studio exec and the studio is clean, and then it also doesn't, except for like interiors of nice houses and like the stars of Hollywood, it's not a going down the strip kind of thing, like
glamour and glitz.
It's
you don't have time. You're on the studio lot all the time, right?
Like the only except for like a studio lot and a shot that could be any marquee at any theater. Those are like there aren't very many like exterior establishments.
LA,
yeah. But at the same time, it's more LA than for a Hollywood movie. It's more like California and like normal LA. For a very where everything else is very star-studded and big.
Right. And one of my favorite performances in this is Whoopi Goldberg as the detective who's on the case trying to figure out.
Oh, yeah.
She's so great throughout. And there's an interesting anecdote that I heard that in one of these interviews with Altman where she contacted him and said, I want to be in this movie. And he said, oh, I don't have any part for you. And she said, well, what about the detective? I could play that. And he was like imagining in his mind a white guy, basically, and said, oh, yeah, sure. I didn't think of that. But yeah, go ahead. If you want it, it's yours.
That's great. Because
I was going to say this thing.
Yeah. I was going to say that's such like unusual casting.
Yeah.
But makes it really neat.
It makes it really neat. Makes it feel real, too, in a way. Or more, I don't know, why not, right? It's really great. It's a really early example, I think, of like, well, why not? Of course,
Or like Lyle Lovett, just this
Lyle Lovett.
string bean twisted man kind
So
of creeping around everywhere.
Catching flies in the air. Yeah.
This character is so strange. It's kind of got that like, it's the Twin Peaks LA a little bit too. There's definitely some like twisting and tweaking, and you're in you're kind of, it's clear you're in a hyper stylized world, whereas, it's not the 50s. It's like 30s. Modern 30s Hollywood, where like Twin Peaks is modern 60 or 80s 60s.
Well, it makes me wonder if it's supposed to be like a out of time kind of moment, because Altman was definitely around during that kind of golden age of the the fixer, the MGM fixers, kind of the Mannix type of people. He was active in the scene at that time. So I'm wondering if this is supposed to be out of time, or if this is like, no, this would be a role that somebody was, somebody did have this kind of occupation at that
Well, they did have like the boss of the studio is a replicant, so there's like definitely like a future style kind of thing going on. Like, so Levinson, you know, you see a turtle on its back.
Right.
That's a good question. It
makes me wonder if it's based a little bit on Robert Evans as well.
Well, yeah, and he's also, he's definitely, because every poster in the background and every shot, it's like heavily noir.
Yeah.
Right.
Without always having the harsh lighting of the noir. But
right. And Altman's been very, sort of pointed as saying that this isn't about anyone in particular. This character who killed somebody is not based on somebody that I know. It's this sort of like half folklore, half like accumulated idea, which, take that with a grain of salt. He's, going on a tour talking about, studio executives who are making his films. So you have to wonder if he's protesting too much,
Yeah. Well, one kind of important thing. So I was 14 when this movie came out. And I remember seeing it, and the first time I saw him push that writer into the puddle and kill him, I realized that's when I wanted to be a producer.
He's never looked back.
Never looked back.
That's right.
It's pretty wild. Like, it's very fun as well, because it is like story within a story, so it has that stylization.
Right.
I really dug that. Now, I remember I saw this when I was like late in high school, because it was like a movie you have to see. It was like, I think it's got to be on like that top 100 list that was going around for a while. But in the 90s,
we definitely rented this on VHS when I was younger too. Yeah.
In the 90s, we just had the rise of independent cinema in a big way, and this was sort of like early on that wave.
Are we still calling this independent? I don't think this should be considered.
This only
an
had
indie.
an $8 million budget. That's
cheap.
Cheap for a movie. That's an indie budget. That's not a lavish budget.
And a lot of these actors, are. The cast is tiny when you then look at the extras in quotes who are like where the stars are. It's a pretty small cast, and it's a pretty low number of scenes.
Yeah, but so 92 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So Tim Robbins and Whoopi Goldberg, they're no slouches. These people are like at the top of their game. So I still hesitate to consider it an indie.
Guinan was over.
Yeah.
There was
Right.
No, but when did Color Purple come out? Like
that was
Whoopi,
much earlier.
Whoopi is like she was.
Well, yeah. I guess
it was way before Eddie came out.
It may not be. It's an indie in that Altman had clout, and I think he was going outside. Like, he could get this movie made outside of the studio, like the hard studio system, and so he pulled in the favors and got it made. Just made this fun movie that allowed him to experiment and do a lot of like self-referential work. It's a blast. It's also fun, especially now that a lot of the actors that are in this are later in their careers. Right. They're kind of, some of them are twilighting, and we're seeing Vincent D'Onofrio retiring almost from television now.
Right.
And where he's had his full arc of career, and this is sort of the beginning of that arc for him.
Right.
Well, he's had several arcs. I feel like he had a resurgence in the late 90s after what is it called?
Men in Black.
Something Minnesota.
Raising Minnesota.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it was Cameron Diaz and him in a movie.
But
he don't forget.
Jennifer
he was in Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
So the dude's been around.
Right.
I really love the idea of the happy ending, that this, every movie has to have a happy ending, and it's so in your face with it that you think it's almost so straightforward in its presentation that you think that it's going to subvert that. Mm-hmm. And because it doesn't, that is kind of subversive in a way. It's sort of like, it's really layered. They keep talking about a happy ending, and the evidence just keeps mounting and the tension keeps growing, and you think there's no way he's going to get out of this. He's going to get busted. He hasn't
earned this happy
ending. He hasn't earned it. He's been a shit the whole time, and then it all works out. It's all okay in the end.
And they even
because it's Hollywood.
Yeah,
it's the Hollywood ending.
They do kind of like even they say clearly like there's no second act. This doesn't work. Like when they're critiquing the other movies that they're talking about, they're critiquing the movie that they're in.
Their own movie.
Yeah. And just like blasting it. And it's great. Like it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw this film, I didn't appreciate like I think a lot more of those kinds of things went over my head, and this second viewing I really was much richer for me. I really, really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it's just so many simple elements. Like nothing is like overwrought, but every layer, like the music, is like nicely disjointed from the scenes that they're showing.
Yeah.
I mean, which you see at the end when they like play the sort of like Rosemary's Baby tweak as he like rubs the belly of his pregnant wife.
Yeah, there are so many moments that you can only imagine must ring even truer if you're sort of completely folded into that scene at the time. The Japanese karaoke bar, that terrible pitches. Anytime anyone pitches an idea, I love the pitch from the two writers. The twins, yeah. Those, but also the writers whose film end up getting made in the movie. Habeas corpus,
well,
yeah.
Here's a really hilarious bit of trivia. A film company actually tried to option habeas corpus from the writer who pitched it inside the movie. Like, it's like how brilliant is that?
Yeah, there's so much going on. And there's this really great moment toward the end where the two leads are at the hot springs, and he's explaining that, they can greenlight 12 movies a year, and they hear 50,000 pitches a year. And he says that for a movie to work, it has to have suspense and violence and nudity and sex and a happy ending. And he's just listing, literally checking off all of the things that are in this movie.
And especially a happy ending.
Especially a happy ending. And at that moment, I feel like okay, this is either they're going to deliver on this or they're going to really smack you in the face with it and go the other way. And they don't. It's amazing. Yeah.
Especially, too, because you get, I mean, again, not to spoil too much, but they kind of they've built up another thing as like, it'll never have a happy ending. And they pay off, in that the joke pays off on that, which is great. And then you're thinking, well, that's the happy ending. That's what they've been like delivering to us. And so this is reality and that's not going to happen. But again, it's reminding you, no, you're still in a movie. You're still, this is not cinema verite.
Right.
This is still very,
it all wraps up. It's so meta.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because it's technically very well done and it is very meta and self-referential, but I wouldn't call this movie deep. No. This movie it's interesting and clever, but I don't know that it's really like scratching at some sort of eternal truth other than, isn't it funny the way movies are? Which is like, and the answer is, it's really funny the way movies are, know?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it wouldn't, it's not that exemplary of Altman's oeuvre.
Right.
Well, at the same time, it's also the like weird depth is, this is how surface these people are.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
this is how shallow.
Yeah, totally.
Like, this guy will tell his girlfriend, who they've set up in the first act he's with, that he's not seeing other women, and then without explanation and unapologetically just flaunt this other woman and then just stare her in the face. Like that is like brutal.
Right.
When she comes in to be like, what are you doing? And he's just like, nothing. He has nothing to apologize for.
Right.
He could give a shit. And at the end of it, that's when you kind of know, this crisis that he's dealing with the death of the writer, he's not torturing himself. He doesn't really care. He just doesn't want to get caught.
Right. And that's the way.
He's not wrestling with the ethics of it.
Right. Like he doesn't feel bad. He just feels like, oh shit, like I could be caught out. And again, it's all about appearance to some degree. And that's pretty wild. Like that.
Yeah.
That you have people.
Meanwhile, he's wearing that silly-looking billowy suit the whole time, and his appearance is crazy.
But at that time, it was the height of fashion.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And just that he immediately courts the dead writer's girlfriend without, at his funeral they meet. If it wasn't so funny, it would. At times, actually, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, oh man, this is like kind of mean-spirited on Altman's,
dude, yeah.
Or on Altman's part even, like, wow, do you really have like this low regard for Hollywood? And I wonder if, it's that type of thing where someone's joking with you, but they hit you a little too hard. Right?
Well, also like the way D'Onofrio, as sort of like the failed writer, is dressed and carries himself. And then the guy who's speaking for him at the funeral, has the same like turtleneck and blazer.
And that speech is just, brutally rude. Yeah.
But again, it's like just being very like holding up a mirror that shows like a funhouse mirror, a character, like a mean caricature to people. It does get pretty brutal. And again, like this whole time, this character, the Through Road, people are just calling him an asshole and like shitting on him.
Right.
When we don't know the context of it, but that's all like when we finally are getting the sense of it, it's like, yeah, this guy's garbage. Any of these people would want to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty amazing.
There's no redeeming aspect.
And it's funny too, because for a lot of the cameos, like the actors didn't really know the backstory or anything, but they just intuitively knew he was an asshole.
Yeah, there's that great moment with Malcolm McDowell where he's like, they just bump into him in a lobby, and he says, "The next time you're going to talk about me, say it to my face." It's great to think that could just have been on the fly improvised. And Dean Stockwell is just totally incredible in everything, but especially in this as this sort of one half of a writer duo. I really like that trope of like the sort of the willowy British writer who's paired up with this scrunched up Dean Stockwell as this like tiny New York,
knows everybody,
just like, yeah.
There's also weird like water metaphor. Like there's a few like levels of metaphor. Water's a big one, but it's also jokes with water and drinking, where he'll ask for water. I mean, he drowns a guy in a puddle.
Right.
So there's that. But then there'll also be this thing where like he doesn't drink alcohol, but he says, "I don't drink." And throughout the whole movie, he orders stuff and has stuff sent to him. But I think the only time he actually takes a drink is when the woman gives him the vodka. And the only time he drinks it is and he says, "I normally don't drink." And it's because he
doesn't drink water.
He doesn't drink
all,
anything. And because there's a point where he's sitting at this table, and he says, "Oh, bring me whatever, a Vodic," or he's always ordering different like fancy waters too. And they pour it into a wine glass, and he doesn't drink out of it. He just, "Can you put my water in a water glass for me?" and then he leaves before he drinks any of it. Like just every time. I think I'll have to like watch it again, but I'm pretty sure the only time he actually takes a drink is when
he says, "I normally don't drink."
He drinks the vodka that she poured him and says, "I normally don't drink."
Wow, I wonder what that's about, being cleansed or something.
I don't know. It's just a weird like. Well, one again, he has this like. It might just be a weird tick for the character. But then, like, drowning someone, being there's nothing. He's just unsated, unsatisfied. He's just this sweaty, weird character. And then by the end, they're like bathing in, they're in the desert town. It's sort of dry and
right.
They're near pools a lot as well. There's just a lot of water. Also, I think the house that they have that party in, like kind of early on, might be the same house from the Brain Candy.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It looks very familiar.
The party where he has the party where he meets Cancer Boy and stuff. But
such a good movie.
I'm pretty sure that's the same house, like because it has a similar layout. But who knows? It's LA. They all look like that, maybe. Yeah.
So what did you all think overall of it? Was this the first time? I'm sorry. And is this the first time you've seen it, or had you seen it before?
Definitely not my first time. It's I consider it like definitely a classic of 90s cinema. Its efficiency is amazing.
Yeah.
And that you don't realize the whole time just how small of a cast it is and how much Tim Robbins has to carry this movie.
Right.
And he does it amazingly, I think. I think he's very underrated. And I think in the long term of things too, Whoopi Goldberg's very underrated in her career. Just at what she was when she was given the keys to the car, how well she drove it And sadly, I just never feel like she was given enough opportunity to do that. And maybe Tim Robbins too. The movies that he was given a chance to really excel in, I believe he overdid. He did better than expected. So I'm surprised he wasn't in just a lot more stuff. Maybe he got choosy. I don't know.
Yeah, this reminded me of this role. The closest thing I could think of is the Hudsucker Proxy. Had some parallels, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the clothes or something.
Yeah. He's a mogul.
Yeah.
You mean with Tim Robbins or just with a theme?
I don't know. For some reason, like it
well,
reminded me
he carried
of him in that
Shawshank.
film. Yeah. That's true. That's so funny that I didn't think of Shawshank.
Yeah.
It's like his biggest film ever.
Yeah.
I did watch this movie with Mary. She hadn't seen it before, and we rented it on iTunes. And I was just like, well, I'm going to
You mean popular reoccurring guest Mary Varn?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, let's I got to watch this. Do you want to watch it with me? And she's like, yeah, well, we've both been really busy prepping for a move. And so we sat down to watch it, and we were running out of time, so we had to pause it or whatever. But we were both just very into it. Like, she, having seen it for the first time, she really enjoyed it.
Cool.
And
Great.
It was nice. It was one I hadn't watched in a while, and it made me realize how it's simple, but it's just artfully done. The film is very deft. It takes care of all its characters and handles all of its framing, especially knowing that they were basically directed like extras, and that they were still like the whole choreography was done so elegantly. It just shows that this is someone who is a master at their craft. And that this is them, it's a musician who's just whistling and enjoying the pure art of what they do. And it comes through. Like, it seems like this was a great experience. And it feels good to watch this movie. Everything is joy. Like, it's tense and like funny, and it's just joyful the whole way through.
And you can tell everyone had a great time making the movie. You know what I mean? I feel like that comes across. And I'd seen this in college. When I worked at video stores, I burned through a lot of movies, and I hadn't seen it since, so it's been a long time. And I was glad to have a chance to rewatch it. I really appreciated a lot more of it, I think, than when I first saw it. So, like, I appreciated it at different levels this time around. It was good.
Yeah, and it's a very LA movie, but it's very like the Hollywood like industry level. Like, it's not Mulholland Drive or LA Story or any. There's a few like what would be like another LA type movie. Like Steve Martin's made a couple. Like Shop Girl has some elements of that. But
well, I feel like some of the new Coen brothers, the most recent Coen brothers movie, kind of taps into some of this feeling.
Right. This sort of studio side.
Yeah, the guy on the lot all day long, trying to fix
Hail
problems.
Caesar had a lot of but Hail Caesar was kind of the period version of that.
And it was based on somewhat based loosely on a real guy named Mannix as well, who was like a New York. No, he was a New York. I think his family owned a dry cleaner. And then he came out to become like literally one of the most powerful men in Hollywood.
Wow.
Like started as a fixer, ended up being kind of like running the studio. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
I think it most reminds me in a lot of ways of Get Shorty. Of this sort of, I mean, that's a whole different genre and a whole, different vibe, but just that something goes wrong, but in the studio exec side of things. It's really cool.
And do you like?
But so much less John Travolta.
Yeah, way less.
The Criterion print's really good for this.
It's really nice. Yeah, it looks really pretty. The Blu-ray transfer is great, and the special features are just Altman talking about the process, which is really hard to. Yeah.
And he passed away not too long ago. Is
yeah,
that right?
pretty recent. If I remember correctly.
Right.
Let me look that up.
Just not too long ago. That's sad. Yeah. So, Jocko, would you? Who would you watch? Would you sit someone down and watch? Did you watch this with Blair or anything? Or?
No, I watched this alone. I didn't watch it with Blair. I think that she would like it, but I would recommend this for. It's not necessarily for everybody, or it is for everybody, but it's a harder sell than it should be for as good and approachable of a movie as it is, I think.
He died in 2006, so I guess it wasn't that recently.
Not that recently.
The Secret.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that was it.
Wow.
Oh man.
Yeah.
He took the economy with him. So I guess my question is, would you consider this slightly not as good as Popeye, or like way not as good as Popeye?
Slightly not as good.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Oh, Keith, at the Draft House, they had a Popeye and like 4-course meal thing where you would watch Popeye and eat
cheeseburgers in there,
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
But there's a lot of Popeye in the player. Like you can see a lot of parallels between the story. Especially there's a point where he eats like a green, like a iron-rich leafy green.
Right.
Sort of overkill.
And that makes him strong to the finish.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely through the end. And that's kind of where you get your happy ending.
Yeah.
The payoff with the story in the story, though, that's just hilarious. Like, so funny.
One of the best like Hollywood jokes, I think, is when we finally see this movie that people have been bouncing around and pitching around, and we've seen it sort of work its way through the system. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. The dude who plays what's the guy with the big eyebrows who plays
Ward?
Yeah, well, he plays the new like guy who's gonna come in and take over. Levy.
It's Fred Ward or
Peter
Gallagher.
Peter Gallagher.
Right.
Eyebrows, gotcha. Yeah.
Wait, why are all the Gallagher guys have eyebrows? But
what's the other Gallagher guy?
Wait, who's the guy in I don't know. Never mind.
I think it's all just Peter Gallagher.
Okay.
That's how big his eyebrows are.
Yeah.
That you think they belong to two different people.
Who's the guy in Pushing Daisies and stuff?
Oh, right.
I don't know that.
Noel Gallagher.
Noel Gallagher. He's from.
Isn't that an Oasis guy?
That's Lee Pace.
Yeah, Lee Pace.
Gallagher. There's the comedian Gallagher.
And his brother.
And his twin brother.
Franchised it. No, he did.
Yes. So what were you saying about Peter Gallagher's character? Wanting to come in and change things.
Yeah, it's nice again. And other metaphors like them showing sharks. You got to keep swimming. You just have this other like terrible character who's supposed to be like the foil, but he doesn't really do anything too bad.
Yeah, he's not that bad. It's like the idea of reputation being more sort of dangerous than the person itself.
That's like the dynamic with Bill Murray's character in Scrooge with that guy that was he was actually kind of nice to him the whole time, but he just keeps thinking like this guy's gonna come and try to take my place. The young upstart
who plays Lex Luthor's father in
Smallville. He does. Yeah, he plays the CEO in Gremlins 2.
Oh yeah, it's actually there's some parallels to American Psycho a little bit with the like.
Didn't we bring this up last week? I believe American Psycho's character was brought up as one of the
Patrick Bateman. Oh, the chiropractor guy
from 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But because you have again like these characters who are all so very surface, but the one sort of main character has this thing running beneath.
Right.
And it's him sort of.
Yeah, but I mean, we all have that kind of skeleton in our closet, right, guys? Like where we accidentally took something too far and somebody ended up, right, guys? I mean, this all happened.
Well, we're not all producers, Keith.
Some of us are writers, all right? So
yeah, exactly. You should know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Because you're next.
I've been drowning my fair share of puddles. Yeah, this rings true to me.
But I was comparing to American Psycho because it kind of has this, these characters who are like circling each other all the time and just like totally out for themselves, but also mostly worried about their position in the world versus like their position as humans, like how they exist. And none of their connections are real or have any depth to them.
They're all psychotic. Yeah.
Right. It's like sociopaths.
No, sociopaths are better.
And so that's, so you have, like Patrick Bateman and his sort of like weird dating Chloe Sevigny's character in American Psycho, and then him and
Is his name Jason Bateman in the movie? Where does that keep coming?
Bateman.
His name is Patrick Bateman in
the
American
characters,
Psycho.
yeah.
Okay, good.
But then you have in this one, like both his relationships are just so like he's like a serial killer going after the girlfriend, and with the woman he's already with, like it's just this weird.
And how do you mean, like he's like a stalker almost?
Kind of like he just gets fixated. It's like a serial killer getting fixated on the kill. Like they just.
I mean, he calls what he initially meets her by calling the house, and he's outside the window watching her, and she doesn't realize it. Yeah. And
almost in this weird possessive way, he wants to like totally destroy and like own everything that the writer was, to like remove the power from him.
Right.
Which is like, it's super.
Which is what a producer does to a writer. Am I right, Jocko?
That's right. I'm just kidding, Larry. I love you.
So how did it resolve with people sending him a note that he thought he was being threatened?
Well, no,
I forgot how that.
Well, so he's in the car. Like
he just gets a call. Yeah.
He gets a call just like Gallagher did, and Gallagher's calling him now saying, "Oh, I got this guy pitching a great idea," and the guy's like, "Here's my idea, the postcards. You got this producer keeps getting all these threatening letters and blah blah," like basically blows up his spot, like is saying, "I know you. I'm the guy who wrote those crazy letters." So you never see the face of the guy.
Right, you never see the face, and the resolution is Tim Robbins' character saying, "Does that story have a happy ending?" And
he's like,
"Guarantee
me a happy ending."
Yeah, and he's like, "I can if you greenlight it." And he's like, "Sure, movie. Yeah, let's make this movie. Like, it's cool."
Was it a ploy to get the green light, or was the guy really threatening him until he gave him the green light? What do you think?
I think the guy was really threatening him, that he was going to kill him, and for some reason it cools off and it's not explained, and it's just like, and it's so perfectly just plot point for the sake of plot point.
Right, yeah. Just
even the symbolism of the postcard, it's this sort of this image that comes in from nowhere, and it's really, I think that it's just meant specifically to be this little driving injection of forward action.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I just think that's I think one of the treasures of this movie is the construction of it. This leads to this, this leads to this. I feel like it's just so neatly a neat package in that way.
Well, and also again, the American Psycho parallel, it's very much like any of this stuff, like, is it real? I mean, it's already not real because it's a movie and a narrative, but also like, did someone really, like, does he have a fax machine in his car and someone put a snake in his car that he beat to death?
Right.
Like, did that scene actually happen? Did he actually kill the writer?
Is the whole thing like a Jacob's Ladder situation? Did he die in the first scene?
Yeah.
And this whole part is just him, like, living the moment up until his death?
I should hope so.
An owl on Creek, what is it?
Incident
an occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge.
Yep. That's a good one.
They made a Twilight Zone of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks for the pick. It was great to revisit.
Yeah,
and
so good.
Just a breath of cool, minty air.
90s air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could almost hear like Boys to Men a little bit back there.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me this week. It was great.
It was
always.
Awesome. Great pick, Jocko. Thank you, man.
And well, let's just take a minute. Robert Altman, man, way to go.
Yeah.
That guy.
Way to go.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Knocked a bunch out of the park. Let's just put it that
2006, The Secret.
And Popeye is really good. I'm not joking. It's a good movie.
He put it out there. He put it out in the world.
Certainly is a weird movie.
Yeah. Talk about a theatrically constructed reality.
He's heard every pitch.
That's exactly right. It's Out of Africa meets Pretty Woman.
He knows all the angles.
We're gonna have to have a little sex in this.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course. We'll get it.
Slowly, he pushes her panties down to her knees.
And all the players.
Where this going? Such a question. There are many possible answers, such as hard work. Years ago, the holy record
feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch, so I sketch on pages and hope this uncatch.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of The New to You Show. I was one of your hosts, John Holtz. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho, and you can find me on Instagram at board_ghost, and you can listen to my RPG storytelling podcast at boardghost.com. Keith, where can people find you?
People can find me at earthlingkeith.com. How about you, Julian Cage?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BeautifulJules. And how about you, Jocko?
And you can find me everywhere at Jocko Farino. That's GIACO.
1C.
1C.
All right. So let's see. Before we roll into what's coming up next week, Keith, what's new to you this week?
Oh, yeah. So I saw the movie Lion recently. I don't know if you guys seen this movie.
Yeah.
But that's the Lion King.
Yeah, I do.
But this is pretty much the same movie.
Okay.
Except with people in it. No, but Lion it's a really, really cool movie that is about a guy
who just is not telling the truth. He's a lion.
And a genie makes him tell the truth for the whole rest of the movie. It's crazy. It's about a guy who was adopted by parents in Australia, and his really interesting story getting to that point, and his really interesting story rediscovering where he came from. It's a really, really well-constructed, beautiful movie.
Is it based on a true story?
Yes, it is.
And did it had some Oscar nods this past year?
I think so, yeah.
Dev Patel was nominated, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was.
And Dev Patel fooled around and got hunky in this movie. That guy got,
fooled around with who to get hunky?
I don't know. Fooled around with some image consultants or something. But the guy's looking pretty good.
With a personal trainer.
Mm-hmm. But probably say the first half of the movie is just very, very devastatingly sad and real and very beautiful. But I would go, I'd check that movie out. Give it a look-see. It's really good.
Cool. What drew you to The Lion?
We were just looking for a movie on pay-per-view. Yeah, it wasn't scary. And usually I've got this weird habit of being like, I worked all day. I don't want to watch a movie that makes me feel anything. I just want to watch like some crap.
And Felix is like, let's watch The Lion.
Felix actually goes like, I'm a lion, rawr. But no, this movie, I'd seen the preview, and then I'd read a little bit about like the real life story that happened to it, and I was like, that sounds pretty neat. And it was just a day when like, I guess we'd watched one too many crappy comic book movies, and so I was like, well, to pay my dues, I got to watch a real film. So
you thought it was like a Black Panther spinoff?
I thought it was like, I thought it was a movie about a guy who gets superpowers, has lion powers, and he has his mane that like allows him to do stuff. But it wasn't. About an Indian guy.
You're like, why did he get so ripped for the movie if he's not a superhero?
Exactly.
When's he gonna get bit by a lion?
But it really could have fit very squarely in our theme from maybe a couple months ago about Strange but True, or Stranger
than Fiction.
Yeah, Stranger than
something.
Weird Stranger, Weird Factor Fiction. Because it's a really interesting, really, just how this kid got to where he was to where it's so that he got adopted is amazing. It's an amazing story.
He just really wanted parents, and then
he visualized
it. They came to him.
Yep.
No matter how difficult it was.
No, and he's like, Nicole Kidman's gonna be my mom, and he made it happen. Lion style.
Lion style. So where can people watch Lion?
I saw it on pay-per-view on Spectrum, but I'm sure it's on.
Might be on iTunes now too.
Oh, it's certainly on iTunes, but I can't say as to anything else that it might.
Had you guys seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
I would recommend.
It's
one I've been
hunky
looking for.
Dev Patel, y'all. I mean, this ain't no more.
He's prepping,
Marigold
is he
Hotel
prepping for a role in one of the Marvel movies.
I think he just wanted to step up his game.
He's the new Logan. Good pick, Keith.
My pleasure. I hope you all see it. It's good.
Cool. So next week we're going to be continuing our theme of success with my pick, Glenn Cook's novel from 1984, same year that the dystopian reality happened. The Black Company. So yeah, it's a little fantasy novel. So go get your read on. It's available on Kindle. You can get The Chronicles of the Black Company, which is actually the first 3 books on Kindle right now. And it's Jocko, you said you were listening to it on Audible?
I did. I listened on Audible, and it's great, very earnest reading. Really fun.
All right, so yeah, go check that out before you prep for the final episode of Success.
And be successful. Come to us successfully having read that.
Yeah.
The secret.
So to find out more about The Player and Lion and the other shows that we've talked about, stuff on, blah, go to newtousshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at newtousshow. You should go to iTunes and leave us a review.
Or some comments.
Yeah, leave some comments. Let us know how we're doing. You can email us on from the website. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of us. Let us know if you've seen these things.
Or if you have some show ideas.
Yeah, we'd love to hear some pitches from y'all.
Yeah.
Something better than The Graduate Part 2, please.
All right, gang, it may not be new. Maybe it was new to you.
Explosion sound.
This pitiful life is all about the music. 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 This pitiful life is all about the music.
Be with him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not dead.